Hello, and welcome to Uncorked, a podcast where we get raw and real, all while under the influence. We are your hosts. I am Katie.
And I am Madison. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and open our bottle of wine. So today we have, it's called Stella Rosa. It's the Stella berry wine. It's made with real fruits, and it's best served with fresh fruit, cheese, and dessert.
Yummy. On episode 5 today, we're going to be discussing finances, debt, and how it affects our mental health. Why we chose this topic. I've come a long way over the years as far as learning about finances and how to overcome struggles with it. I've made a lot of stupid decisions over the years when it comes to money and debt, and definitely just learned a lot. Talking about finances can be important, even though it can be hard. Society has made it seem as though finances should be kept hush hush, but it should be discussed more, I think. Why keep it bottled up when we all struggle with the same issues?
Yeah, I was, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is I was never really educated on finances growing up. My family is not very good with money. The only one probably good is my uncle. So I was just never really educated. And then as I'm growing up, I've made some not really bad decisions, just probably could have made better decisions with my money. And then it's hard growing up, being a new adult, learning money, and then not comparing yourself and what you have to other people. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think growing up, getting out of high school, society has taught us go get in debt because you have to go to school. You have to get a credit card to build credit or whatever they want you to do. And people, 4 years after high school, they'll be $100,000 or more in debt just in school loans.
A lot of people think it's just the normal.
Yeah.
To be in debt and to just spend money that you don't have to have all these nice things go get a brand new car, go get a big house when you really don't need those things.
Right. Why do you think people are uncomfortable talking about finances, career pay, and debt?
I think people, always compare themselves. So no one really ever wants to talk about it because you think someone may look like they have more money or may act like they have more money. So then you get self-conscious oh, maybe I don't have any money, or, they have nicer things, or they look like they're doing better in life. Yeah. And so that makes you uncomfortable and you don't really want to talk about it.
Yeah. And some of the people that have the most money, you sometimes they just don't show it. Yeah. Because I don't know, it's just a priority thing. If you want to look cool and you want to have a big house or be car poor, why do you want to do that when you could have experiences?
Actually be money and actually have money.
Yeah.
And build wealth and leave stuff and have
and
a retirement and have things like that. Yeah.
In career pay, I think that's a very weird thing to be hush hush about. I don't care if you know how much I make.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, especially after graduating college, you just expect to make a certain amount of money. You're oh, now I have a degree, I'm going to go make $60,000 a year. And then you're that doesn't happen. No. Unless you have a specific career field, or an engineer or something like that. But that normally doesn't happen.
Yeah. And you all have to start somewhere. Yeah. And there's plenty of jobs out there that you don't have to go to college for, and you can start out more than what you would start out graduating college and getting a job from there. Yeah. And that should be educated to us more, but it's definitely not.
And I think too, people always oh, so-and-so went to school to be a teacher, so they don't make that much money, but so-and-so went to school to be a doctor, so they make a lot of money. But that's your choice. Right. And if that's what you're truly passionate about, you shouldn't care about how much money you make compared to someone else, because you guys chose different paths, or you're interested in different things. Yeah.
And somebody that is close to graduating or looking into a certain career path, I think they should ask the people that they want, that career that they want to be, hey, how much money do you make, just so they can they know what to expect. Yeah. What is one thing that makes you uncomfortable to talk about?
Probably just debt in general. Like, how much debt do you have, or how much, or not, or kind of like how much you make, just because I always compare myself to other people who are like older or something, and I'm like, oh, they've been working for 20 years. Like, of course they're gonna make more than me.
Right, gets you a little discouraged.
You're like, why don't I have all the stuff they have? But then you have to like look back and be like, oh, they've been working for longer. They've really worked hard to get where they're at. So, you know, when I'm that age, maybe I'll be there.
Right. I think the only thing uncomfortable for me to talk about, like, I'm fine with talking about finances mostly, but I feel embarrassed about how much like debt we have. And growing up, debt was normal. Like, not to like shame my mom or anything, but I know that she was always in credit card debt, and she always wanted to make sure that we looked like we had nice things. But if you look around and you have all this credit card debt, sorry guys, and you don't have a whole lot to show for it, it's just really disappointing.
Yeah. Or
if you have a nice car and then 5 years down the road, it's worth not even half of what you bought that for. It's just sucks. Is there anything that you are close to, or is there anyone that you are close to that it is hard to talk to them about this?
I don't really talk about money with anyone except TJ. Sometimes we'll ask his family for advice, because they are very smart and they handle their money very well. And like TJ was taught about money.
Right.
I don't really talk to my mom about money. I'll ask her for advice here and there, but it's just because we didn't have money growing up, and she never really taught me how to handle money, so I don't really ever go to her. It's kind of hard to talk to her then about it, and I don't ever want to be like, oh, I have this much money. And then sometimes I feel like maybe I make her feel bad because I'm doing really good for my age.
Right. You almost feel like you're bragging.
Yeah. But I know that she's like proud of me, and she doesn't care about that stuff.
Right.
But it just makes me uncomfortable to talk to her about it. But I like to talk to my uncle about it, like if I ever have any questions, because he's really smart and he's always helpful about money and stuff like that. He's a accountant, so he loves that stuff anyways. Right. So I usually go to him for advice.
Yeah, that's how I am too. Like, looking at everything now, I'm super about budgeting and making sure that we are ahead on our bills and everything's paid and we can only spend this much on groceries this week. And I love that kind of stuff. So I'm good with talking about it. Is there anybody that's I don't really feel comfortable talking about it with? Is probably just probably like my family a little bit. But that's about it. What is your biggest regret with money, Madison?
Probably, I don't really know if I have a regret, because everything that I've done has put me where I'm at. But I wish that I would have known more about student loans, and I wish I would have known more about getting cars, because to like me or to like my family, it was just like, oh, you know, you need a new car, like, let's just go get a new car. And then you spend all this money, and then you end up having to fix it and do all these things. And then you're like, well, why am I dumping all this money into a car and fixing and doing all this stuff? And then student loans, it's just the normal. Like, it's like, oh, go get a 4-year degree and get in a bunch of debt. And then, oh, wait, you need your master's, get in a bunch of debt. Oh, wait, you're not in the career you like, go back to school and then get in more debt.
Right.
So that's where I'm at. But so those are the things I wish I would have known more about and could have done more, like done better.
Yeah. I definitely, as far as cars, I wish we would have gotten like cheaper cars. And then just credit cards. I feel just so dumb. Like, why did we rack up some credit cards that we have?
And they rack up so fast too. Yeah. Like, you don't really even realize it. And then you're like, oh, my bills, I owe $2,000. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah. And you'll be at the store and you'll just like, oh, I'll just grab that Red Bull out of the fridge there and just put it on the credit card. And like, so much money later, you're like, where is this money? Like, where did that go? It literally just blew.
You're like, what did I even spend that on? I can't tell you because it's gone.
Yeah. What is the hardest thing for you when it comes to money?
For me, I think it's saving.
Yeah.
And I actually, so TJ's mom told me this once, and I never thought about it. When you grow up poor or like struggling, you don't have a concept of like putting money back. You literally just pay. Yeah, you use all the money you have. So then when you get money that you're like, oh, I could save, you're just used to spending it all on groceries and bills and stuff. So that's what I do. Like, I'll get paid and then I'll go to the grocery store and I won't have a budget. Like, I'll just make a big list and then I'll fill my house with food or
like fill your freezer almost.
Yeah. And so when she told me that, it kind of like opened my mind. I was like, I never thought of it like that, but it's kind of almost like a scarcity. Like, you think you're never gonna like have it again, so then you just go spend it on food or like things like that, but not actually like save it.
Yeah.
So saving is my biggest struggle.
Yeah, I feel that too. And I don't know, like when we get like big chunks of money, it's like, do we put it towards this debt? Do we save it? Do we try and finish this house project that we've been doing forever? Mm-hmm. So it's hard because, I don't know, it's just like, what do you do with it?
Yeah, and there's always something that needs fixed or something like a bill that needs, you're like, oh, let me catch up my credit card bill, and then you're like, oh, okay, I should have probably saved that instead for like an emergency or something.
Yeah. And I feel really bad for like people that don't feel comfortable talking about finances with like anyone. Mm-hmm. So they like get into this relationship and they don't talk about it, and then they stress or they fight anytime money comes up. Like, I can't imagine being in that situation.
Money is the number one cause of divorce.
That's true.
And
just
I couldn't imagine. And me and TJ, we don't argue about money, but the only time we'll ever like, I guess, kind of argue about it is saying like we need to stop spending so much, or when we actually realize like, wow, we're adults, like we need to start saving for future things, and then we're like, we argue about like, oh, who's ordering the most on Amazon and stuff like that. But that's pretty much it.
All right. So not focusing or talking about finances and how it affects your mental health. Just know that there is always someone that will listen to you about these kind of things. I don't want to be like it should be, but try and feel comfortable about it with your partner, especially, and that's really important. But do reach out to a friend or family member if, you know, that partner doesn't want to talk about it, and just go from there. But when it does hinder your mental health, life can just feel out of control. When you feel as though you're losing control over your mood or your thoughts, you'll likely begin to feel as though life is out of control too, especially your financial life. You may even lose hope about a brighter future. And who wants to save for a big purchase or put away for retirement when life feels as though it's spinning out of control? I can definitely feel that.
Yeah, I think it's so hard, especially when you're like a new adult. You're I graduated college, we bought a house, we got cars, we did all the things that adults
are quote normal
to do, and then now I'll have like a breakdown because I'll just start feeling like, oh my gosh, all my money's gone to bills or things, and then you literally feel like your whole world is crashing because you just feel so overwhelmed.
Just heavy.
And then you feel like, I feel so ashamed or like discouraged. Like, why did I just do that to myself? Because no one put me in this position other than me. Like, no one controls my money except me. So like, why did I put myself in the position to not have a good savings account? Or like, and then I'll just start like crying. I'll have a mental breakdown.
Yeah. And it's the same almost like when you're like not necessarily dieting, but when you're trying to be good, like eating healthy and working out. It's almost like that. You have to try and better your lifestyle and keep at it, or you're just going to fall back into that same old cycle of spending money and then not having it.
It's so easy. Like, I'll get caught up, or I'll be like, oh my gosh, I have an extra $300 in my checking account. I should put that in, throw that in my savings. But I'll be like, no, I'm going to go use that $300 and spend it on something that I've really been wanting, or I'm going to go treat myself. And then I think treating yourself, for me, it gets a little too out of hand. Like, it's nice to treat myself and go get my nails done or go get a coffee or something. But then you're like, wow, I treat myself every day. Like, that should be like a once a week kind of thing.
Right. Or even less than that. Yeah. My biggest thing is probably Amazon. Because it's just so easy to click, and I'll be bored and literally don't need anything, and you just go on there and I'll be like, oh, this would be super cool for my
like,
craft
well, I've really
room.
been wanting this. Like, I'm just going to order this.
Oh, like, oh, look at that cute shirt.
And then when I get really stressed, I'll have no motivation to literally do anything, so I'll just go spend money.
Right.
Or I'm like, I'm just going to go, like, get a coffee and get lunch, and then there's $30 in my day.
Yeah, what is that, like, drug called, like, when your brain feels happy for, like, 2 seconds?
Like your endorphins?
Yeah.
Your serotonin levels? I think it's
something
endorphins.
Like you...
I should know this.
Dopamine, producer Nick says. But
That's
you just get that, like, little bit of happiness.
Yeah.
And you get that, like, when you get your Amazon package, and then it's gone. Yeah. Like, that's all that thing was, is 2 seconds of happiness for you. So you are more likely to avoid problems. So it takes a lot of concentration and fortitude to tackle a tall stack of bills, or to call the credit card company to address your late payment. So it's definitely a lot easier to just go keep spending your money instead of like actually looking at it.
Actually sitting down and looking at it and saying, you know what, we don't need to eat out as much, or things like that. But I think that's a job that, like, I wish my parents would have done. Like, sit me down and say, this is like what it's going to be like when you're an adult. Like, you can't do all the things, or teach me, like, you know, the reason we only go out to eat once a week is because of this. And, like, then when you start getting your own money, you're like, oh, I have all this money, I'm going to go out to eat every day.
Right.
Because that's just what you do when you're young and stupid.
Yeah. And of course, sitting down to create a budget creates high anxiety, and it's often painful to face the facts. It's much more tempting to avoid those sorts of problems when you aren't feeling your best. You can get desperate for temporary relief. When you're in pain, you'll do almost anything to get out of it, even if it's going to hurt you more in the long term. It's one of those reasons the term retail therapy was invented. So, like, they literally came up with that slogan.
That's
like, go get retail therapy.
Stores, like, feed off of people like this.
100%.
Stores feed off of us because we just our anxiety gets so bad that we're just like, I'm going to go shop because I need to de-stress. And then you'll spend money, and then you'll get home, and then you'll be stressing about the money that you just spent. Okay, my issue is I'll shop, and I'll have my cart full. But then on my way to the checkout, I literally put everything back, and I walk out of that store empty-handed because I feel so good when I'm buying it, and then I look at my cart, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is stupid. I can't afford any of this. Yeah. And I put it all back, and then I leave, and then I get really upset.
I think that's really bad when there's, like, holidays and birthdays, like, especially our kids. I'm like, oh, I got to get them this and this and this. And then I'm like, oh, that's a lot of money. And then I'm like, oh, they already have, like, a toy like this. And, like, I don't know. Or is it with Nick? Like, all of his hobbies are really expensive. So it's hard to, like, I don't know, choose, like, what I should get him or what I should do for him. So I just want to get him, like, a thing for each hobby that he has.
But then you freak out because you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much money. But then you feel guilty because you are like, well, I really want to give people these gifts. Yeah. That's what I do for Christmas. Like, I always want to give people really nice gifts and things that they will enjoy. And I love giving people gifts. And then you, like, look at your bank account and you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, I just took all my money.
Right. Literally just makes you want to cry sometimes, even though you're, like, in the season of giving and feeling good. Yeah. Buying something right now, whether it's a new pair of shoes or a car you can't afford, will give you momentary pleasure, but there's a good chance it will create more financial distress in the long term. Your self-esteem plummets. Quite often, the worse you feel about yourself. And that can lead many people to try and overcompensate. Low self-esteem can cause someone to buy expensive clothing, a name brand watch, or even a luxury car in an attempt to project an image of success. So I think that was a big issue with my mom, like she always wanted to have like the best car and like to have our house look nice, or just like clothing, especially when I was in high school. I would always ask for, I think that was a big thing in high school, like having Aeropostale and Hollister and all that.
I wore uniforms, so.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
But even though we wore uniforms, people still, like, they could tell if your khakis were from American Eagle or from Target. Or they could tell where your shoes were from, or everyone had to wear everyone wore Uggs, and if you weren't wearing Uggs, people knew that they weren't Uggs. So, I mean, that happens when you're at that age. My mom, I think, like, we never had really nice, expensive cars, and we didn't have, like, super nice houses. So she didn't really do it. Like, she didn't spend her money on nice things or, like, to make us, like, look nice. So I really don't know what she spent her money on. It's just, like, because you hear people that go buy these extravagant cars, but my mom could never do that. We just had, like, we had nice cars, but they were just from, like, a buy here, pay here lot or things like that. And then, but I guess, like, my tuition was expensive, and we played sports. And I think she spent a lot of her money on those things.
Yeah.
Which I think
Did you guys go out to eat a lot?
No, we didn't. Like, once a week.
All right. Energy levels decrease. So a decline in mental health often means poorer quality sleep, increased feelings of fatigue, and more trouble staying on task. All of those things can make it much more difficult to think about paying off debt, let alone take action. And it's hard to create a plan for a bigger overall picture when you aren't in the right state of mind. Yeah, you just get stressed out over everything. It can just like crush you or put you into a really bad depression just thinking about it.
Last week, I think it was, I got my first like full paycheck from taking like cutting hours for school. And I had like a mental breakdown. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is my one and only semester in nursing school. Like we can't afford it. Like whatever. And TJ was like, if we just look at our money, like we can afford it. We just need to be smarter about where we're spending. But I literally I literally had a breakdown and like couldn't do anything. I literally felt like I couldn't study. I literally couldn't do anything because I was so discouraged and so upset.
Yeah. And you just, in those moments, you kind of do just have to take a moment for yourself to breathe and assess everything.
Yeah. And then I start panicking and I'm like, oh my God, I can't go to school. Oh my God, I need a new job. Oh my God, I need to get 3 jobs. Like, then you start panicking and then you're like, oh my gosh, I need to calm down. Like, breathe for a second.
You don't realize how much 10 hours of work a week is in a paycheck. Unhealed wounds may come back to haunt you. So when you're feeling down, your brain will recall all the other times when you felt similar feelings. And those just might be the lowest points in your life. Quite often, emotional wounds that never healed get reopened as your mental health declines. I think that's really important with money too, because when you do go spend that and you go max out that credit card, you're like, oh shit, I did this once before. I have like 5 credit cards that I've maxed out already. Yeah. Or like with cars, I'm like, why did I just go buy this new truck even though my other one still worked? Yeah. Or whatever it is.
That's kind of how I was like when I was having that breakdown. Like, you think about all the things, like you think about how, like for one, I thought about how hard I tried to get into nursing school, or how hard I tried to get the job that I have, or how hard I tried to get my like other bachelor's degree. And you're like, think about all those things and you're like, was that worth it? Like, is this even worth it? And then you're like, why did I put myself in the situation to not have enough money? Or like, all this is my fault. And then you just start panicking, and then you think about, and then you just spiral. It's literally just a spiral of like, you're just like reflecting on your whole life, and then you think everything's a disaster and that you are a failure. And
you just gotta think about everything and slow down for a second to just assess your whole situation that you're going through. It can be hard to think about your grocery list, let alone your financial future, when your mental health is on the decline. Making decisions, planning ahead, and organizing your financial situation may feel like an uphill battle that you're not equipped to fight for.
I think that's important to talk to whoever, like if if you have a partner that you're spending money with or you're sharing bills and stuff, you need to let them know, like, hey, this topic is stressful for me. You know, can we like go slow, or can you make the grocery list, or can you go grocery shopping, or, you know, and especially also if you are tempted when you go to the grocery store to go down that makeup aisle or go down that aisle, you know, that you shouldn't go down. Like, make sure that you're open about those things. And I know it's hard to talk about. Like, I grew up with a single mom. So I grew up very, like, I was always taught, like, be an independent. Like, have your own money, have your own stuff.
Yeah, don't rely on anyone.
And sometimes that comes back to bite me because I don't talk to TJ that much about, like, my finances. Or I'm not like, hey, TJ, like, I am struggling. Can you help pay for this? Or, like, hey, TJ, maybe we shouldn't go do this. Or, you know, because I just want to be independent. But then you have to realize, like, no, like, this is our future together.
Right.
So just to be open, but I know that it's hard.
Mm-hmm. When me and Nick got married, it took us a little while to put everything together. Like, we still had our separate bank accounts and we had our separate debts, and we didn't really talk about it a whole lot. Then we, like, moved in together, and we actually started looking at everything, and we're just like, holy crap, we don't even have a house yet, and we have this debt, and we have this. So it can just be frustrating. You just have to sit down with them and talk it out. But yeah, before we move on to some tips on discussing finances, please make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and or share this podcast with your friends. Join our group on Facebook called Uncorked to stay updated and connected with us. So thank you.
Okay, some tips to discuss financial health is talk about finances with your partner early. We've kind of talked about that earlier. Just make sure that you're open, especially if you do especially if you're dating someone and you plan for that person to be your husband or wife, and make sure you guys are communicating about what you want your life to look like, where you see yourself, your goals. Like, some people really want a big house. Some people want to live in an apartment. Some people want to move. Some people don't want to move, things like that. So make sure you guys know what each other's expectations are.
Yeah.
And where you guys can, you know, help one another and grow together. And then if you're single, make sure that there's someone that you can talk to. Mm-hmm. Find a friend.
Or a mentor that you look up to. Yeah,
mentors are really nice. And it's okay if it's not family, because not everyone's comfortable talking about their finances with family.
Yeah. And it definitely should be talked about pretty early in the relationship, I think, too, because if your expectations are totally different, then you know ahead of time that this may not work out, or this, hey, we both agree on everything as far as finances go. So
I think too, for me, so me and TJ come from different backgrounds. So it was hard for me to open up. And so we probably didn't talk about finances until I moved into, like, my first technical, like, apartment when I was in college, and started, like, paying for things myself. So I think if you have a partner who's from a different background and you're feeling embarrassed, like, they're not going to care. Like, TJ does not care at all what I came from, like, or the things that I care about and stuff. Like, he doesn't care. So just and if they do care, then that's probably not the person that you should be with.
Right.
Make sure to ask questions and be open to new perspectives when asking questions. Make sure to ask what if questions. So, like, what if our car broke down? What would we, like, do we have enough money to fix this? Or, like, what if our furnace went out? Like, me and TJ were talking about that the other day, because our furnace is old and we had that big snowstorm. So, like, what if it went out? Like, would we have enough? What's our plan? You know, and then, like, we talked about it, like, when I was thinking about going back to school. Like, what if I went back to school? Could we do it?
Right.
And those are important conversations to have.
For sure. Take baby steps when talking about it. You don't have to bring up everything at once. So you could just bring it up into everyday conversations. I know me and you have had conversations about finances just out of the blue, just talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's fine. And I know it can be stressful, especially if you're embarrassed or, you know, it's a touchy subject with your partner or your family. But do find somebody that you can talk to. Take babies. Sorry, guys. I'm getting a little drunk here with some wine. Create money goals with your partner or kids and hold each other accountable. Ask them about their upbringing. Talk about yours. Like you said, you and TJ both have different backgrounds. I think that's how it is with me and Nick too. His family kind of struggled a little bit when they were growing up. But they also stayed away from like a lot of debt. So I think that is where Nick comes from. He's like, no, like didn't want a whole lot of debt. Yeah. And when he went to school or like went to college, he needed somebody to co-sign, and his parents were like no, like I don't feel comfortable with that. And I don't know if he was upset about that or not, but I understand where they're coming from, because how do you even know?
I'll never co-sign for anyone unless it's TJ. Yeah. Like unless it's my husband or maybe a child in the future. I guess I will never co-sign for anyone, because I know I've seen what that can do to people. Yeah.
It can literally destroy relationships. Yeah. And we've had problems with that. Like we've helped a family member and they've just like never paid on it. And so it's basically just come back on us.
Yeah, that's like, what I've seen with my family. It's like ruined family relationships, because once you start borrowing money from people or things like that, I mean, it's just someone never pays or something always gets miscommunicated or stuff like that. Yeah. And it literally will ruin relationships.
Yeah. And you just have the people that like, oh, you never paid me, when like I have all the receipts for paying you. And
yeah, I borrowed money from my mom when I was like a senior or like a sophomore in college or something, and I literally made a document of payments, and like I signed it and she signed it. Right. So there's proof that, and I'm not saying like she would ever say I didn't pay her. It was more for me, like to hold myself accountable. I'm treating it like a credit card. Like if I owed a credit card company, I'd have to pay it. So if I borrow money from someone, you have to pay it.
Figure out what you want to know, ask, and research. So just ask around. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of books and podcasts and like different money plans just to help you out. So look into it and see what works for you.
People should be embarrassed to ask, especially if you're young. Like I should have asked more questions when I was in 100%. College or things. Like I should have asked more about student loans instead of just saying, oh yeah, that's what they'll give me, that's what I'll take. Yep. Like I should have asked more questions.
I feel like that's how it was with like, because I went to beauty school and I got my cosmetology license, and I think I did that just because I didn't want to go to college and get like even more debt and get into a career that I maybe didn't like or wasn't going to continue with later on in life. Yeah. So I didn't want to commit with something big, but I still did have that little bit of debt. And I don't know. I do regret going to cosmetology school. I loved doing hair back then, but I don't like doing it now. Like now I like doing artsy and crafty stuff, and I wish I could do that all day long. And I think that's why I did hair, because it is like a arty, crafty and it is a type of art. But it just wasn't for me in the end. So just do your research and ask everyone. Money doesn't dictate how awesome you are.
I think that's so hard, because I have an issue with comparing myself anyways, or never feeling good enough. And that's just a struggle that I've had to deal with and trying to learn more and deal with, and it's just not working. But I compare myself to literally everyone. So if I see one of my friends has a super nice car, I'm like, wow, they're my age. And I know that I
should have that.
Yeah, and I know that they don't make that much more money than me, and like, how come they have that and I don't, or like things like that. But you don't know what's going on. You don't know what their finances are. You don't know anything. Really, yeah. And so, and especially with our house, like I compare my house to everyone else's house or things like that. But at the end of the day, like me and TJ will sit there and we're like, it's just two of us. Like we should be happy and proud that we have a house anyways, because some people can't ever buy a house.
Right. I think Nick gets like that too, but it's more on like the truck vehicle side. Like he wants this big old fancy truck that's lifted 16 inches and like wants all the fancy things. But I'm like, all of the people that do have those trucks are in different situations than us. Like you should be proud of us because we bought a house when we were, I don't even know how old I was, 21 years old, and like we have 2 kids that are like beautiful and like
you just have to like look back and actually realize what you do have.
Yeah,
because some people don't have what we have, or you know, like, and like what we said, like people who are older, like we shouldn't compare ourselves to them because they've worked hard, or they've been working, or they've been saving, and they, you know, and like one day we'll get there. We don't need to rush to get there. Yeah.
And like you're awesome because you're like a good person, or you're a good time to hang out with, not because of all the things that you have.
That's what me and TJ talk about when like TJ always wants to have people over or things like that because he loves entertaining, or he just loves being like the life of the party.
He loved when we did his birthday at your house.
He loves that stuff. So I think like for him that's what he likes most. Like he doesn't care about our house. He just cares about like inviting people and it being like a warm place for people to come over and like hang out and have fun.
Yeah. And the way that we see ourselves is not how other people view us. And I was talking to you about this actually today because our dog is shedding super bad and it's really annoying. But like when you go over to somebody's house, you don't really notice how dirty it is, or if there's dog hair on the floor. But
like to us, we're like, people probably think we're gross because we have dog hair everywhere because like you have a shedding dog and I have a shedding dog. But some people hate dog hair. Like some people make comments and they're like, oh, that's too much dog hair.
Right.
Then that makes you feel bad about yourself. Like, oh, things do not like me because I have dog hair. Like,
yeah. And those kind of people, just like, they're just not for you, you know? Just don't hang out with those people. Find a mentor. So we talked about this a little bit, but I think coworkers is like really cool in this area because you can see like where you can go or what you can do in that line of work, or just with anything. Sometimes you need to listen more than you speak. So yeah, especially if you don't know what the fuck you're doing with finances.
You need to just, like, if your mentor or whoever you're going to for advice is telling you advice, and I should have done this, like, I used to ask my uncle for advice, and then I would, like, not take it, or do something stupid, and he'd always be like, well, don't ask for my advice and then not take it. Yeah. But you're young, and you just want to do what you think is best and what you think you want, you know, what you need.
Yeah, what you need in that moment.
Yeah, but I would suggest if someone who you have gone to, who you think is smart and who you value their opinion is giving you advice, you should really listen to it. Yeah. And really consider it. And if you truly in your like heart believe that it's not the right advice, then that's fine.
Yeah. We've had like family or friends ask us like a few things, and we still struggle too, but if you come to us and we tell you like, hey, you should do this, and you do the complete opposite, it's like, why the fuck did you even ask me? Yeah. Like, I just get so confused. But yeah, maybe just take that into consideration when you do ask for that advice too.
And just keep it casual. Like, don't make it it doesn't have to be a serious, deep, in-depth, heartfelt conversation. Yeah. Like, just keep it casual, keep it light-felt. You don't have to rush into being like, oh my gosh, I need to pay off all my credit cards in 1 month. Like, that's not realistic.
Right. Or like, hey babe, let's do the budget for this week.
Yeah. Just casual. Or like me and TJ will sit down at dinner, or like after dinner we'll be like, hey, like let's make our grocery list and actually go through our kitchen and see what food we already have, and you know, and budget that way.
Yeah, just go like from the menu from there.
Yeah.
That's definitely super helpful. Right. So as far as my tips go, me and Maddie both have a few different tips for everybody. If you don't want them, well, I don't know what to tell you. But finding Dave Ramsay. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Dave Ramsay, but he's like this Southern man that just speaks money into the world. Yeah. But it has been life-changing for me because, like you said, we didn't really talk about money. My mom pretty much told us, like, just make sure your bills are paid. Like, you have bills every month. Like, you have this. And I never really took that to heart until we got a house and got into everything. Before, we always used to go back and forth with paying off debt just to like rack it up again. He has a radio podcast show that I started listening to because of Nick, and his family has been listening to him a long time too. But it's just the stories of the people paying off debt and reaching amazing financial goals and freedom is just truly inspiring. He gives these basic baby steps. So the first one is just save $1,000 in your emergency fund. The number 2 is just pay off all of your debt using the snowball method, which is just listing your smallest to largest, and then you can just roll it into the next big one. Save 3 to 6 months expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. Invest 15% of household income into retirement. That's really important too, because you're actually looking into your future life instead of just living in the moment.
Yeah.
Save children's college fund, and then pay off home. And then the last one is just build wealth and give. So I know that's what we want to go with. And we do plan on paying off our debt within the next couple of years and just going from there.
Yeah. I think people need to realize that like paying off debt it's a slow process.
Yeah.
Because they're like thousands of dollars. So you can't just like write $1,000 check and then pay your normal bills or things like that, you know? So that's a slow process. I think too, the retirement, like I wish I would have known more about retirement.
Yeah. They don't really teach you.
I didn't know about that until I started dating TJ, and like his family talked to him about it, and like his parents have talked to us about it and stuff sometimes. So we both have, I mean, as soon as we got our full-time jobs, we started saving in retirement.
Yep. I will put all the links in the description below to like a show. He has like a budgeting app, which I use. It's super helpful. I think you use it too. I used to use it.
I'm super bad about entering stuff and keeping track, so it doesn't really work for me.
Yeah, but people that do like that will like their app because you can literally just move like, you push the Walmart into groceries or whatever it is. Just talk about goals with friends and family. Talk about job pay. Talk about all the things. Sit down and make a budget. Write down goals and go from there. So like for me and Nick, we want to move in the next like 2 to 3 years. So once we get all this debt paid, we save up and we're just going to get a new house, hopefully with the land and a yard to where we can have another dog. And yeah, that's what our goals are. And I think I definitely want to move forward with maybe possibly a business, but we'll just have to see.
So do you guys do the snowball? Do you guys do the debt snowball effect? How do you think that's been benefiting you guys?
Oh, really well.
Really?
We've paid a lot of money off in just this last year.
Do you think it was a big adjustment to like switch your budget around or things like that to start that? Do you think it was hard to start?
No, I think the hardest thing is like getting that $1,000 in there, but once it's in there, we know like we don't fucking touch that money. And then we do list everything, and once you list everything out, you're like, holy shit, why do I have 14 grand in credit cards or whatever? And okay, we don't have 14 grand, but I mean, we've paid so much money off. It just fucking amazes me that we've racked this much money and we don't like what do we have to show for that? Things don't always go to plan, but having a plan will help you execute something that even if it seems impossible.
I think that's important. Like if like me and TJ, we made like a list. Like the first thing we did when we moved into our house was make a list of all the things we want to do. Yeah. And we've slowly been checking them, but we'd probably not get anything done or know anything if we didn't have that list. Yeah. So just like it's like a friendly reminder.
Checklists like help me a lot.
I love checklists. I make like, a checklist every day. Yeah. Okay, some of my tips. I used to actually listen to Dave Ramsay too. I don't listen to him as much anymore. I just I don't know. I just strayed away from it and don't really pay attention that much anymore, and I should. But there's a few things that like me and TJ personally for like our personal life do differently. So the $1,000 in your savings account it's a great idea, so you can do that like debt snowball effect. But TJ is very frugal. His whole family is, and they're very like, so if his save, and I think the struggle with us as well is we're not married yet, so our bank accounts are separate. Our debt is separate.
Yeah.
So it's hard for us to like look at them as one because we're not paying on them together or things like that. So when TJ's like savings account gets below an X amount of money, he'll have like a panic attack. Like he'll freak out and he'll like do anything he can to get it above that amount of money that he thinks should be in there.
Babe, we're not doing anything until we get that up.
So that's kind of like our struggle with doing like the whole baby steps thing. I agree with paying off your debt lowest to largest. Me and TJ, or I've done that. I've made a list of like all my debt, started with my like lowest credit card all the way to like my car, and then slowly paying them. And then I feel like it'll just like I'll just swipe it again, and then it will just get racked up again, and then you like start freaking out. So I would just make sure. What really helped me is one of my credit cards was like super outrageous, and I like did not need to put any more money on there, and so I like put it in our safe in our house, and so I paid it off, and then it just kept it in there, so it wasn't even in my wallet. So even if I needed to use it or wanted to use it, I couldn't because I didn't have it. So that's a good idea. If you're trying to pay off a credit card, I would try and like leave it at home.
This sounds super bad too, but don't be afraid to just cut it up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because worst case scenario, those people are going to give you another one. Yeah. They will, because they want you to rack it back up, and they want you to.
So I've heard if you close a credit account, it messes up with your credit score. Is that true?
It'll bring it down for like when we've been closing credit cards out. Them up? We cut it up. We've closed them out. But it'll bring it down for a few months, but then it'll just go back up because you're continuously paying down other debts as well. And it can like hinder your, what is it called? Like the age limit of your credit.
Yeah. But
you can even do this, is just cut it up and then just leave the quote account open. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're really worried about that.
Yeah. Another thing that was really helpful, and I still do it because I still waitress every once in a while, so I get cash, is I use the envelope system that Dave Ramsay used to talk about, or he does talk about it. So we have an envelope for groceries. I have an envelope for personal spending. I have an envelope for gas, a couple other things. And then so every time I either work at the bar or I get paid, I'll take a certain amount of cash out and I'll separate it into those envelopes. And so I know if I'm going shopping with my friends, I only have that $50 that's in that envelope. Yeah. And I don't swipe my card. And it's really helpful with groceries because me and TJ are really easy to just pick up random food, and then we'll get to the checkout and we're like, how did we just spend $150 for 2 people on groceries? Right. So if we take cash out and we actually watch what we're picking up and we're like kind of, eyeballing the prices and totaling them or whatever, you only have that $60 that's in that cash envelope. Yeah. So that is super helpful, and I would recommend that to people. I would recommend taking it slow. Like, don't listen to this podcast and then go write all your debt and then be like, oh my gosh, I need to start tomorrow. Like, I'm going to pay all this off tomorrow. Like, It is a slow process. Even people who like are on Dave Ramsey's podcast, or like I know my old boss, her and her husband paid off all their debt, but it took them like 14 months. Right. So it's a slow process.
It's literally like a diet, not a diet. Yeah. I shouldn't say diet, but like a,
it's like a lifestyle change. Yeah. You literally have to reprogram your brain to think
like debt is bad.
Yeah. And like, is this worth it? Is this outfit worth it? Do I really need these shoes? Do I really need this extra? Or like, we're bad about going grocery shopping. We'll buy food that we already have. Right. So like really go through your kitchen before you go to the grocery store, or just things like that. Or if people ask you to go to dinner, like all your friends are like, let's go to dinner this weekend, you can say like, sure, like I'll just meet you guys after. Right. And not go spend the $60 for your dinner, or like maybe just get an appetizer. And like, it's okay. Don't feel ashamed that you can't spend that money. Yeah. Don't feel ashamed. And your friends shouldn't make you feel ashamed if you don't want to go because you don't want to spend money. Right. Like, you're trying to save and better your future. And you shouldn't look at it like, oh, I can't go, like, poor me. You should say, like, no, I just saved $60. Because going out to eat is expensive, and getting drinks and stuff, all that adds up.
For sure. I think that's why we have everybody over all the time for dinner.
It's easy just to have people over at the house, and you can bring, and like everyone pitches in for food or something, because it's so much cheaper. Yeah.
Have a potluck with your friends.
Yeah, because me and TJ, especially once you turn 21, like me and TJ realized our bill is just so expensive. But if we'll go to dinner and we have waters, we're like, wow, our bill is so cheap.
Yeah, literally a pop is like fucking $5. Yeah.
And then just like one beer or something like that, it's just outrageous. So just those little things. Crazy. Another one is make sure that you make or set a SMART goal. So something that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So just make sure, like with what Katie said, they want to move in about 2 or 3 years. So that's their SMART goal. They're making it measurable, timely, like it's realistic. They're not saying, oh my gosh, we're going to put our house up for sale in a couple months.
I wish.
It's just like they're actually planning it and doing it like a SMART goal. So just make sure you're setting those. And then I'm going to reiterate, because I need to reiterate it for myself. Don't compare yourself. So I'm so bad. So I'll look at other family members or older siblings, and I'm like, wow, they look like they're doing so well, and they don't struggle, and they have all these things, or they're doing this, but they work hard. Or you know what, if you see those people and you're like, how are you guys saving that much, ask them, because I guarantee you they'll give advice. Because TJ's older brother, he's really good with money. They're super with money, and like he will give me and TJ advice whenever we ask. It's just like us actually asking for it and like getting out of our shell and like feeling comfortable saying, you know what, we kind of need some help. Can you help us? But just make sure that you're asking for help, and don't compare. Like, your life is what your life is supposed to be. And like, it's everything in your life is different. Your life is not someone else's life.
Yep. Yeah. And with friends, it can be like disheartening almost. And out of our friend group, like, we're the only ones that have kids. Mm-hmm. So it can be hard that way too. Like, we always see our friends going on, like, say, vacations, or like they're getting a new car, and we just have to sit back and be like, well, we have kids, so we're going to be able to do all that stuff, like, when our kids are like grown and can watch themselves, and then like our friends are gonna have kids like when that's happening. So it's just like a different time frame that it will be happening. But yeah, I think that's about it for this episode, Madison. Do you want to close us out and rate our wine? What do you think about our wine today?
I actually really liked it.
Yeah,
I thought it was a good flavor. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't too sweet, I didn't think.
You definitely, it was like a berry.
But it was a good flavor. I would give it an 8 out of 10.
You'd say 8? I think it was like a little bit too sparkly. I would say like a 5.
It definitely is sparkly. Yeah. Okay.
Wasn't totally prepared for that. But it's good. It has a really good flavor, and it's sweet. And I've been getting more into like the drier wines. Yeah. So I'm not as used to.
Maybe we'll try a drier wine next episode.
Dude, last weekend, me and Nick, for Valentine's Day, he was like, let's go to Aldi. So he had me just grab like 8 bottles of wine. So next week, we'll be having a mystery guest on our podcast, and we'll have her choose our next bottle. Yeah. So, yeah.
Thank you guys for listening so much. We really appreciate it. And all our new members on our group on Facebook, we really appreciate you guys. Make sure that you guys are sharing our page and doing things like that so we can get more people, because we don't know everyone that you guys know. So just make sure you guys are sharing us. Ask us any questions that you have. If you guys ever need advice on anything or want us to talk about a specific topic, please ask us. There will be links in the description below for everything that we've talked about, or any resources for you guys for finances.
And our group.
Yes, and our group. And then, like Katie said, next week we're having a special guest, and we're going to talk about a really good topic. So please stay tuned for that. Make sure that you guys just subscribe and like to our podcast, and we really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you.